Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we have a very special guest on the podcast to talk all things leadership. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, he himself has been one that I have looked up to since first meeting him about 6 years ago, in fact, and have just learned a ton from him, continue to watch him as he continues to affect the lives of so many out there in our industry, and I'm sure quite a few outside of our industry as well. So without further ado, very excited to welcome to the podcast Jack Tester, the leadership coach for the Nexstar Network and former President and CEO. Welcome to the podcast, Jack.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to see your face and hear your voice again. I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to have you on here. There's a handful of people that when talking to, I always say you better have a notebook ready. You are one of those people, and I got my notebook ready. So I feel prepared, which is good. I guess to start out, I'm sure many listeners know who you are and what you've done and different things like that. But there's probably some out there that aren't as familiar with you. Do you mind giving us maybe a little bit of your background, kind of leading up to your current role here with Nexstar?
Sure. Well, I was 30 years old, and Frank Blau, who was the originator of the idea of Nexstar, asked me to come on board and get this organization started. And it was named Contractors 2000 at the time. That was in 1992. So I was the very first employee of Nexstar and helped get it started, ran it for about 6 years. And it was, a classic startup business. We didn't know how to do it or what to do. We just had a lot of energy and a mission and a vision. And we chased that for 6 years, and it worked. The industry was ready for an organization like Nexstar back in 92. So I did that for 6 years. And then I took a 7-year, I'll call it a sabbatical, when I went and worked for a large company. A service master just bought Rescue Rooter. And then shortly after I got there, not because I got there, but shortly thereafter, we bought ARS. And I helped run that business for 7 years in a variety of different capacities. But it was a great 7-year break away from this organization for me, because I really got out there and actually did what we taught here at Nexstar. I had never been a plumbing, air conditioning, electrical contractor. I was running this best practice organization for the above. And that 7-year break, a lot of bruises, a lot of bumps, but man, I tell you, I learned a lot. And so I did that until 2006. And then I came back as a business coach. And shortly thereafter, I became the coaching manager for Nexstar, working from my home in Memphis. I had relocated for that other opportunity. And was a business coach helping our members and developing our coaching organization. And then when our former CEO, Greg Nemi, did a great job for Nexstar, retired in 2011, the board asked me to come back as the CEO. So I returned to what I had done at the beginning and was the CEO for Nexstar from 2011 until late fall of last year, when I stepped back and took a part-time role and wanted to make sure the organization kept growing, and I was doing some vital work, and now I'm a leadership coach. So that's kind of brings us to where we are right now, right?
Yeah, well, awesome. Thanks for sharing all of that. One thing is and obviously I've heard your kind of bio a number of times. One of the things that I think it's weird how all of these things kind of come together. I'm reading a book currently on kind of purpose and finding that purpose. Obviously been mainly in the same industry for your career. What do you kind of lean on as you look to make those moves? You look to take on a different role in a different capacity. What do you use as kind of that guidepost as far as making sure that new role aligns with your purpose as a leader?
Yeah, well, the whole purpose question is a big one, and the reality is that your purpose, I don't think, is set and done. I think it evolves. Said differently, I was a young person back when I was in my 20s. My goal was I want to be married, I want a family, I want to support that. And so my purpose is very about me. I wanted an identity as a success. I hadn't had accomplished anything to that point. So, it was very self-driven, very about my family, very little about whatever organization I was working for. Its purpose was about me, right? And I don't think that's wrong or that different for a young person. I mean, until you have a home, reliable transportation, and a level of financial comfort, it's hard to think about anything else, right? It's just what I believe. But as you start to acquire things and get a level of comfort and a level of income, if it still remains about you, you're a selfish leader. So I think your purpose has to be about adding value. It has to be about something bigger than you. It has to be about collaboration and teamwork. And that can take a lot of different shapes. But, for me, up until about, I'm going to say 40, it was really very much about my identity as a leader, wanting to be successful. I wanted to help people, but I can't tell you that the first person on my brain was Jack, not somebody else. But that had kind of evolved, right? And so to me, to go to work for 8 hours and endeavor to work hard, you want that to result in something that you're proud of and you're helping the right people. And for me, coming back to Nexstar, helping contractors, as Frank would say, helping the world's best mechanics become the world's best businessmen and women has been incredibly fulfilling. The idea of helping a rich family get richer doesn't sound that great to me, but helping somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to own a business and, doesn't quite know how to do it, but we help them figure it out at Nexstar, and then their life changes. And because they're good leaders, the people around their lives changes. That's fulfilling, Chad. And was kind of my direction in the back half of my career. How's that?
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. I think you make a few points there, and one that, as being a Nexstar member now we joined in, I think it was May, June-ish of 2015. Obviously in Nexstar, they teach a lot of principles and, a lot of operating systems and a lot of strategy, this, that, and the other. What have you seen from kind of your seat? And this may kind of move into your current role. How much of a company's success do you see, or would you attribute to kind of the operational, acumen of the leadership team versus the actual leadership capabilities, their focus on growing people and development and all of that? Where would you put that kind of the importance of either operational or the leadership capacity?
Yeah. Well, for years, we didn't talk leadership at Nexstar. When we started this organization, it was all about, we were a best practice organization. What are the operating strategies and systems in a business that will replicate success every day? That's what we searched for, identified, and replicated across our membership for years. And, when you're a small company and it's just you and maybe a couple of close people that you're aligned with, leadership's always important, but you got to know how to run a business. You got to know how to price work right. You got to know how to bill work. How to go out and run a call, sell a call, do a call. So the operational systems are, I think you kind of have to have them, and they're of paramount importance, particularly when you're a small business. But as you start to want to grow, the key turning point for somebody is in businesses, can they attract and retain decent people? Just through their own identity and through their own leadership. Can you do that? And so many contractors, and I'm not saying they're bad people, but just can't seem to get that figured out. They can't identify talent, they can't develop talent, and they can't retain talent. And until you can do that, you won't grow. So you'll be stuck in kind of this small, doing it all yourself with these great operational systems that work right. But you're an army of one or an army of just a few. So as you grow the business, leadership continues to magnify in importance, right? So I would say today, unlike 30 years ago, Chad, when we started Nexstar, there was really, how to run a business was a secret. Not many people knew how to do it. There wasn't best practice organizations like our organization and others that were carrying this message forward. So if you had the keys, it was great. You could do it. Today, I don't know if there's a big secret anymore. Companies like Nexstar, we've identified a system that I say you got to pedal the bike. You just get on it and execute the systems, and say it's easy, but it's laid out in front of you. So today, if you want to continue to grow and continue to prosper, as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership, and that's the case today. That's what I believe.
Yeah, that brings me back to a story just from last week. Actually, we had two companies come in here for a tour. The last question that they asked me was, what do you think's been the secret to your success? And, as you put it, and it kind of illuminated it for me just there was, the operational, how to dispatch calls is the same for a company that has 3 people as it is for 300. The principle is the same. The service system and how to offer options, well, that's the same for 3 people or 300. What I expressed to them and had to kind of explain myself is, I said the biggest key to our success is that we care a tremendous amount about the people that work here. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I've seen as we've grown is that level of care you have to over index in care and compassion for those that you work with. And what we have found is that when you do that, you're able to, as you said, attract and retain the best people if they want to come work at your place.
It's interesting. Yeah. Well, it's, what happens is you get a business your size is, they're not seeing you every day. So when they do see you, it's got to be impactful, right? And they got to remember that, hey, Chet cared. He asked me how I was doing. Remember my name. Little things like that. Big as your business grows. Now, every day when there's 80 of you, you saw each other every day, right?
Yeah.
And, you could have a bad moment and recover after lunch. Right? In a big company, it's a little more important, if you know what I'm saying. So.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. And I think that's one thing, and I'll brag on you here a little bit, is, I talked about when we joined Nexstar, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I remember being in St. Paul, and, my brother and I were just some, little no-name, company, really excited about what we thought we could do. And I'll never forget walking into the break room, and you knew exactly who we were. Never met us, but you knew exactly who we were and hey, what's going on? You taught us, we sat down, we said, hey, all these people are talking about all this drain stuff. How in the heck do you do that? What is that? And then lo and behold, from that conversation has led to, one of the biggest departments in our company. And it was that little piece there that I think has always kind of tied me to you, is the fact that you simply knew who I was that first time that we sat down and chat.
You might have been wearing a name tag too, but anyway,
that's possible. But you knew, and we had a good conversation about, I think you had not lived in Indianapolis, but had.
Oh yeah, I knew about it.
Yeah, you knew about the company there and everything. So I think that's a fantastic point. One that I try to stress with, anybody who comes in or asks for advice is, simply knowing the people on your team's name. Knowing about their kids, knowing all of those things, they go a heck of a long way as it relates to leadership and your effectiveness.
Yeah. Also, it makes you an effective leader. That's one reason to do it. But the other reason is people are interesting. I think great leaders, find interest in people's stories. And, I don't say I'm a great leader, but I find interest in people's stories, right? So I sat down and said, tell me about your journey to Nexstar. Why'd you join? I was fascinated to listen to people. And your employees have the same thing. What brought you to Peterman? Yeah. What brought you to this company? How'd you end up here? I'm thrilled you are, but tell me about it. And it's fascinating, and people like to talk about themselves, and I like to listen. So, thank you. Yeah,
absolutely. So as it relates to perfect segue here is the listening piece. So I heard you give a talk on crucial conversations, probably maybe a year ago-ish at Apollo.
Yeah.
In
that was
Cincinnati.
Something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that is something that I personally, I won't say struggle because I want to remain positive, but are continuing to work on, is those crucial conversations and being an effective listener. Tell us a little bit about kind of that philosophy of crucial conversations and the impact that it's had during your leadership journey.
Right. Well, but specifically, what we talked about at that time was confrontational conversations, where we had to have a hard conversation that so many leaders, myself included, just don't like doing. We'll think of any reason not to. It's going to get better. They wouldn't listen. We all rationalize. And the fact of the matter is, as leaders, the most important conversations that we have is about their family and how you doing, what brought you here. But the ones that really leave a mark in a good way are those where we actually confront a behavior that's unsettling to the business, unsettling to our culture, that's not in the person's best interest. And we have the right to do that as leaders, and we have a hard conversation about it. And so we talked about that. And I can think about the moments in my career, people like you thank me, et cetera, but I can think the things that really marked me and helped me move forward were the difficult conversations that people had with me, some with good intentions, some without, but they made a difference, right? And so that always stuck with me. And I can think about the times where I succeeded as a leader is when I, rose up and had a conversation. Usually it's a little late, but at least I had it, right? And help people get to another level, or understand that they weren't going to go to another level, and then we can have another conversation, right? So to me, a leader is it's easy as a leader to say yes or to say nothing. It's really easy. And we think sometimes as a leader, it's our job just to support our team, and we support our team by nodding and thanking them and congratulating them. And we do. These are all important things we got to do as leaders, right? But, I say this, the road to hell in business is paved with the word yes. It's great leaders aren't what they say yes to. It's oftentimes what they say no to, or what they're not going to put up with anymore. So that's what that was about. And I just encourage all leaders, right? If there's a common quality in outstanding leaders, is that they're willing to speak their truth kindly, but honestly. And that's a skill that you got to get good at. And you'll never enjoy it. It's never like playing golf or I like go fishing, What I do I go fishing or have a hard conversation, right? I go fishing every day, right? But you got to get good at it, right? And you got to know how important it is. So that's what we talked about there. And I still have leadership conversations with companies all the time. And one of the most common things I hear is people not putting off having critical, or what you call critical, also called hard conversations with people they work with, including their partners, including their family, right? It's tough to do. And we taught a process on how to do that. We learned from an organization called Fierce Conversations, which is available to anybody. If you want to Google it, you can figure it out. But we teach that, right? We believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I continually use the kind of in that book, the rubric type thing. It makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to have kind of a guide, and then you get better and better at it. But, I think that's one of the things, as we kind of talked earlier about the evolution of leadership, kind of your transformation as your company grows. I've always been a big believer in your company, kind of that law of the lid that Maxwell talks about is they're only going to grow as big as you're going to grow. And so are you going to keep growing and keep, having those conversations from, as you said, from a position of care. Hey, I want you to get better, and this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling, and hopefully draw a deeper understanding of what's actually going on there.
And that's one of the things I'm going to add one thing to that, Chad. As a leader, sometimes, people say, I want to hire my weakness, and they'll hire a pit bull next to them that will have these hard conversations that they're unwilling to have. Can't do that. You as a leader, anytime that you outsource a hard conversation that you should be having, it's dysfunctional and erode you. It might get you off the hook that day. You might say, oh, good. My day's not ruined now. I don't think about it because I gave Chad that to do. But you got to have those hard conversations. You can't delegate them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. One of the things that goes along with that, and before we started recording, I'd kind of fact checked here because I couldn't find the answer. But one of the things that I remember when I was on your podcast is before we got started, you had showed me a little card on your desk that had, and I'll let you explain a little bit better just because you're familiar with the particular testing thing, but it was called character code. And Nexstar done some work on color code. This was kind of that next evolution of it. Tell us a little bit about the character code, kind of how you guys use that from as a leadership team at Nexstar, and what you kind of gained from that.
Yeah. Well, this is really close to the critical conversation thing we just talked about, right? Is here's what I've noticed in my career. I'll set this up as it's going to take me a minute here, so just bear with me. Go ahead. All right. I'm big for assessments, and we all do these. We've got the DISC and color code and Myers-Briggs and caliper, and there's just a ton of different Enneagram. all these assessments, and kind of the underlying assumption with many of these is that it's all about understanding. It's understanding that when it comes to DISC, that you might come at a conversation differently than me, and it doesn't mean that you're less than me. It just means you come at it differently. So really, our job as a leader is just to understand the unique differences of people. Those things that make us unique, and just learn to live with them, right? So I've done this way too many times, and there's some truth to what they say. Everybody's unique. Everyone's, made in the image of God. I believe all that, right? So they're all, no shame here. But the fact of the matter is, each of us have off-putting parts of our personality that limit our effectiveness as a leader, regardless of the assessment we take. I'll take DISC. I'm a D, tending to I, right? And sometimes when I take that, what it leaves me with is that it's okay to be the full-blooded D that's in me. Well, the full-blooded D can be arrogant, it can be aggressive, it can be a little cruel, right? If I just live into it, and sometimes you can just excuse yourself. Oh, don't worry about the Jack's cruel or Jack's suspicious or judgmental. He's just a D, or he's just a red in the color code. And you give yourself a pass. And the fact of the matter is, in the color code, red is power, right? I'm a blue-red, which means that I like to get things done, right? As a secondary color red. But I think I can get things done without being the worst qualities of me. So the character code is designed for people that are closest to you to give you objective feedback on those parts of you that they really enjoy and want more of, and those parts of you that are limiting your effectiveness as a leader. And I will say that for many of the things that limit us as a leader, we're blind to them until we get honest feedback. And so the character code is designed to give honest feedback. It's designed not to change who you are, just to make who you are a better leader, right? So I love the character code. We do it in conjunction with the color code here at Nexstar when we do some leadership consulting. And that's what it's designed to do. And I can tell you, we did it with the leadership team at Nexstar. And then we had critical conversations about this. Everybody had their chance at the head of the table to get feedback. And it was transformational, Chad. For me, just personally, it was transformational. I had always viewed one of my two words that were really limiting my leadership at that time was that I was very suspicious and judgmental, among other things. But those are the two biggies. There was almost unanimity, right? That this is what I showed up. And I had viewed both of those as a good character quality for me, that I was protecting Nexstar through my suspicions and being judgmental. Right? That's what I was supposed to do. But I think I can protect the resources of Nexstar, protect our mission without being necessarily coming across as suspicious or highly judgmental. I think I can accomplish the one without the other. And that's what I worked on. And that's what you saw on my desk, was those two words staring me in the face every day, so that I could catch myself when I went back to my wiring, which was, let's see what someone's trying to pull over my eyes right now, right? So that's what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for sharing that. One of the things, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So I was speaking about this, and we've got quite a few D personalities in our organization. And obviously the D, they want to get things done, as you've said, they, hard charging and all of those things as it relates to the DISC profile. So I had made the comment that maybe we should look at our profile and who we are, and rather than celebrate who we are, is just gain awareness for who we are. And more importantly, gain awareness for who we are in relation to others. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like there's some...
Yeah, but what happens when any kind of DISC training you do as a group, you typically will do the four corner exercise. D's go over here, I's go over here, S goes over here, and then we speak to their inherent qualities. And there's a lot of, fist bumping and chest thumping and high fiving, because Reds or D's, love themselves, right? And they love the leadership, and they're kind of, so then they start to bask in their being abrupt and being, not having empathy and all the things that they love to talk about, right? So it actually reinforces the worst part of them, right? Yeah. So I agree with what you're talking about. Here's the thing, though. You're going to be a D the rest of your life if that's used, Chad, right? You might move it a little bit, but by and large, you're going to be a D, and you're perfect, right? You're great. You just need to get the best part of D and remove the worst part of D, if that makes any sense. And so I like what you're doing. Let's not embed the worst part of it. Let's acknowledge who you are, and now let's talk about how you could be off-putting and how you can be more effective as a leader, which isn't to be more D.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, right? At least my case.
Yeah, because no one wants to read the section of the DISC report that says all of the things that where your shortcomings are. Could come off to people like this, could do this. Well, they just need to get over it, figure it out.
Well, what's interesting is when you get the general report, which is for all Ds, you'll live into the best parts and you'll say, well, those other parts are for other people.
Yeah.
Me. Until it's character code, which is specifically you, in which case you can't run from it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that speaks to, just that humility that one must have as a leader. It's not about you anymore. So it's not about, well, regardless of your personality, D, I, C, S, whatever it is, it's meeting those that you lead at their level. It's meeting them to where their personality is, where they're going to be receptive to your help. And it's no longer about you. And I think that that is the one hurdle I've seen most leaders have to overcome, and the one that they struggle with the most.
Yeah,
and I think we all struggle with it.
Young with Ds especially, right? Dominant personalities, right? Because there's personalities where others come a little easier, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
Well, and the hardest part is if, for whatever reason, in our building there's a lot of D personalities, and what do they say? S is 40% of the population, I believe.
Yeah. Just not at Peterman, no. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So often, very, very interesting, but something we have to consistently work on, or else we're going to have a lot of butting heads, and there won't be a whole lot of leadership. It'll just be, a lot of squabbling.
Well, not a lot of followership with a bunch of Ds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. And diversity.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is I was kind of researching for this. I was looking back through your podcast, and obviously you've had the privilege of coming in contact and being able to interview some of the, I guess, what we call kind of the foremost thought leaders as it relates to leadership and business in general and stuff like that. What's maybe something that one of them either said maybe on the podcast or maybe just, in passing or whatever it was, that really made you kind of stop in your tracks and think, that's a really good point? What was something that maybe one of them said that, really made you do that?
There's a lot, right? And
I've
had the privilege of interviewing John Maxwell a couple of times, and Jocko Willink and Jim Collins. I mean, are you kidding me? What bright people, right? And more than that, right? But I remember just something that really hit me is I learned from Pat Lencioni. And Pat, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and a lot of The Motive, a lot of great books, just a wonderful thought leader. And he talks about things that traditionally have been underweighted in leadership, which is about culture and healthy team, not about strategy and, things that or even some of the like Jim Collins talks about other things too, right? But he talked about this idea of first and second team. And I think this is a dysfunction that I was living into, thinking I was doing the right thing as a leader. And here's what it means is that and let's just take your business. You've got a variety of different departments. You've got finance, you've got plumbing and HVAC service, HVAC installation, you've got call center, and probably even got dispatch as a separate function right now. And you're leading those as a leader, and you think that your highest loyalty is to your department because you're responsible for it, and you've got people that rely on you. And so your highest loyalty becomes your team. And then you're on this leadership team, right, of Peterman, your level 10, whatever you might call it, right? And you're there almost like an ambassador from your department to support the best interests of your department, to make sure that your interests are protected. This dysfunction gets magnified when you get locations. You got Indianapolis, and you got Columbus, and you got other locations, and now you're the GM of one of these locations. It's your job to make sure the business is successful there, and it is. but now you're on a broader leadership team, and again, it's like the UN when you come to these things. You're there to represent your interest. And what Pat said, which was, and here's the thing, I thought that was my job. One of the things I did at ARS is I ran a region for their company for a while. Indianapolis was one of our locations, right? And I cared deeply about Indianapolis. And I wanted what was Indianapolis's best interest. And when I went corporately, I fought for Indianapolis, maybe even at the expense of corporate, if that makes sense. So now when you're on a leadership team, so let's pretend I'm a plumbing manager at your business. And I don't even know you're a plumbing manager. Let's just pretend I am. And now you're asking me to sit on your leadership team. Now my fidelity, my top loyalty has to be to Peterman broadly, not to my department. And the dysfunction, when you think differently, shows up in so many different ways. It shows up in feeling the other departments are competitors or adversaries, or someone to look better than, right? You know, somebody to point out where they're a little deficient as compared to you when you're feeling a little heat, right? Where there's a resource you could share, but it's not in my best interest to share an installer today, so I'm not going to do it. Right? Forget it. It's not helping my world, right? And so, and in fact, this dysfunction, when it metastasizes in an ugly way, you start to tell your team that you're there to protect them from the other teams. And I've seen this in bigger companies. And when I saw it, I didn't even realize it was dysfunctional. It just sounded like a strong leader protecting his people, until I stepped back from it and reflected on what occurred from that point of view. And I realized that I had been living in that dysfunction for a long time in my career. And so to me, that's a clarifying point, right? And we teach that in leadership, this idea of first and second team. And I didn't take credit for it. Pat Lencioni identified it. He just put a sentence to something I had observed. And then it hit me like, yeah, this is important, especially as you grow a business, right? Yeah. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that's that is that comment right there. Even though you don't know it, that is the reason I do this. That's something that we're somewhat struggling with now. We have growing departments.
It's normal, right, Chad? Yeah. Your leaders think they're doing the right thing by doing that.
Yeah. Right. What would you say would be what would be some, if maybe well, I am, so selfishly I will ask your opinion, but I'm sure that there's other people out there that are experiencing this. What, as you've observed this, what do you see as being critical in kind of overcoming that dysfunction?
Well, first you got to name it, until you describe it, until you actually say there's a first and a second team. And you're loyal, your top loyalty is the team you're on, not the team you lead. Say it in those words. Your top loyalty is the team you're on, not the team you lead. And you got to say it. And then you just say, what are the dysfunctions that can occur when a manager on a team puts their team above the team they're on, which is the senior leadership team? What are some of the dysfunctions that occur? And just start listing them out. And then say, what are some of the benefits that will occur when they put their first team first, right? And just identify, almost like here's a list of the dysfunctions that can happen, and here's the benefits, right? And then reverse it and say, what if you keep the second team first? What are the benefits? Well, I care about my department, but can't you care about your department without having top loyalty to the team? I think you can do both. It's not one or the other. That's the thing. There's so many times that things get put in a black and white and either or. Like we can't live on a spectrum here, and I think we can in this area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up, a great point in that where I've witnessed this is, you have an issue and in order to solve the issue, rather than look at the true problem, you try to mask it by having some other department cover for that department. And then it becomes a bigger problem and you're like, so why do we do that again? Oh, we did it because before we couldn't ever for some reason do this one thing. So we thought, well, this department, we're like, well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, why don't every department just do their job and everybody as it relates to that specific task. And then I think we'll be fine. Yeah. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, so we have this dysfunction, and and again, it's well-meaning. Yeah, that's the thing, that it's insidious because it's well-meaning, right? There's so many things that I've done as a leader that I'm not proud of, but almost in the moment I did it, I knew it, right? Like, okay, that was selfish, Jack. This one, I did it without guilt. Like, oh, geez, I'm just doing my job. So that we mask it with like, let's do some team building. Let's go bowling. Maybe that'll fix it. Let's do a golf outing. Let's go on a boat. No. That's good to do. I'm not, I'm going to say this as running Nexstar, we did a couple of manager events, but they were wrapped around. I don't think you have to be best friends with them. I don't think you do. I just have to be respected, right? So sometimes you start to do this stuff thinking that's going to be let's do something fun, which will take care of the problem that we can't define, which is lack of teamwork. And let's just address the lack of teamwork. Let's get good at that. So, yeah.
That's interesting. The comment about not having to be best friends. I think that was something I witnessed in college, more so. High school, played sports all my life. Played high school football. High school football, you're usually like a big group of you. There aren't as many on the team. You all come from a similar background. You may have known each other from fifth grade forward. You got a lot more friends on that team. Whereas college, when I got there, you're pulling 100 guys from all over the country, but you can still manage to work as a team, and you didn't have to be best friends. Like there's a lot of guys, said hey to, work with them on the field, but not going to hang out with them that weekend.
Yeah, you just have. But let me tell you though, to have an effective leadership team, here's the litmus test. When you get together as a leadership team for the week, is it a highlight of your week? Do you look forward to it? And that's when you're cordial, you're comfortable. There's tension, but my point. It's like you don't dread it, you don't endure it, you look forward to it. And when you do that as a leader, when you can say, this is what I look forward to. I look forward to my level 10 or my manager's meeting. And you have the people on your team say the same thing. Now you're running downhill as a leadership team. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about Lencioni, and I think you were actually the person. Fun fact here for the listeners: I think you're the person who actually taught me how to say his name right.
Yeah, I'm one of the few people who pronounces it right. I had to introduce him from the stage, and it was phonetically spelled for me, so I had it. So
yeah,
right.
Well, I still remember that, and I think I catch a lot of people. It took me a while, but I think in the conference that he spoke at, which with COVID, I'm all mixed up on my years and when that happened, and not sure different things. But he talked a lot about, and I think his book was coming out at the time on motives.
Yeah.
For a leader. And we talked a little bit earlier about kind of the transformation of your leadership and, evolving as your company evolves. Mm-hmm. What would you say for a leader are some things to be, as it relates to motives, are some things to be conscious about as you see your company begin to grow in order to remain kind of a healthy company with that growth?
Well, I'm going to quote some of his stuff and then speak to myself. He said there's two kinds of leaders. There's reward-based and responsibility-based. And reward-based is all about what's in it for them. Title, money, perks, right? Responsibility-based leader is about the people and about the vision and the mission of the business and having an opportunity to lead and make a difference. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation is that you hire a 25-year-old person that's got talent and you observe them and you put them in some kind of a leadership capacity and they're trying to buy their first house and make enough money to do that. And they're trying to, get a nice car and, start a 401k, and they've got inherent leadership abilities. They've got good communication. They got a little bit of vision. They got good work ethic, right? They got some EQ, right? But still, it's about them, and I don't blame them. Chad, it's so much easier to motivate a 25-year-old than a 55-year-old. We've seen it all the time, right? Right. It's just, just give that person that first opportunity, and all of a sudden they're charging and going at it, and like, whoa. But then you got to motivate a 55-year-old person whose house paid for, right? And it's got to be about you tapping into the responsibility part of their leadership, and about what they get to do, not what they get, but what they get to do. And I think that's what's the transition if you're running a business, how do you have these conversations with your leaders? Because, people want to work for a responsibility-based leader. They want to work for someone who cares about them, that cares about the business, that doesn't think about themselves first. I remember there's a leader I worked with once, and when he got mad, he would say this: "If you really want to," he says, "now you're making me look bad." He didn't care if you look bad, but when you start making me look bad, now we got problems. Like, what does that say, right? Like, what's important to you is my image, me. And no one will give it their heart and soul to that kind of leader for long, right? So I think it would just be having these, going back to what's the purpose of the business, what's the purpose of leadership. To me, a business is a vehicle, right? We're growing profitably, which then allows us to do other things. That's not the end, that's the means of doing other things. So what's the other things in your business? You grow profitably. Now, what will you do with that as a vehicle? How will you help? How will you make a difference? And you got to answer that question as a business if you want people to be more than about the money.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always equated it, and like to get your thoughts on this, is in kind of in relation to what you just said there. I've always taken Nextstar's philosophy of provide great customer service and the revenue will follow. I've always layered that over really a company's philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
If you take care, and this kind of points back to what we talked about earlier, if you take care of your people and you treat them right and you provide great customer service to your people, which includes education and training and all of that stuff, ultimately the revenue will follow. And you will be, and I think that goes back to kind of what I was telling those people that were touring was, you've got to first care about your people. If all your focus is operational and this, that, and the other, yeah, that'll get you up off the ground. But once you're running, you've got to be able to retain and keep those people.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yes, it's true. I mean, the longer you're in business, right, the more you realize that. Here's the secret, right? Price your work right? Make sure it's priced right. Then just endeavor to make sure that after every contact a customer has with your company, they're closer to your company than they were before. Say it in those words. What does that mean? How does that show up as on a call and dispatch, on a service call and installation as follow-up? If you pull that one off, you got to price things right, because you can, if you're not priced right, it doesn't work. But and Nexstar is a perfect example of that. We try not to make money at Nexstar. That's not our purpose. It's to take money in and to return in the form of goods and services to our members so they can grow profitably, right? That's what we do. And we do it very well. We've done it very well. We continue to. Even in my absence, I think we're better, right? And it's like a machine, right? And because we do focus on the fundamentals, right? Which is we don't, and I'll yell at an employee, by the way, if they refer to one of you as a customer, they're a member. There's a whole different dynamic when you talk about a member versus a customer. A customer buys, a member you're connected with, right? Actually, member owned Nexstar. So it was a little different running Nexstar than running Peterman, but principle's the same, right?
Yeah.
But here for relationship.
Absolutely.
Not a transaction.
Yep. Yeah. The transactional based businesses, good luck creating a leadership culture there of where you can grow people when it's all about the numbers. You've got to involve the people if they're involved in your business, for sure. All right. We are closing in on time here. And as we wrap up, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing a little bit of time with us. This was, I know, a highlight on my calendar as it was approaching, and excited to speak with you here. I know we had to move it once. I'm counting down the days. My wife actually knows to the I think the hour until our newest one will arrive. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we had to move the first one due to a doctor's appointment that we had to get to.
Good reason.
Yep, exactly. So, but no, I appreciate you being on here. As we finish up, is there anything you'd like to just kind of leave as maybe something that has really helped you, or something that you definitely want to make sure that you leave the listeners with?
Yeah. I'll say this: if you're a practitioner in our industry right now, how to run the business is there. Nexstar. We know how to do this. We've refined this business model for 30 years. There's no secret here. You can tap into it and get the what and the how. But for it to work, you have to be a student of leadership. You're never done. You're never baked, right? You got to keep working at this thing, and and it's not hard. If to me as a leader, if you're listening to a podcast to and from work and really reflecting on it, a leadership podcast as an example, or some kind of self-development podcast, even if you're a religious person listening to that kind of stuff, that's leadership too, right? You're growing, right? You can't help it, and you do that little thing, and you've separated from the other 99%, right? So it's just that kind of growth. And then as a owner or a leader in your business, you as a department leader, just say to yourself, how do I grow the leaders? Just ask yourself this question: how do I do that? And then ways to do it become apparent to you, right? When you realize that a big part of your job is to make sure the numbers are right. That's a part of it. Make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's part of it, right? We got to manage too. I'm not saying we don't, but how do we help people develop? And this is not selfless, right? This is not just do it because it's you do. But I'll tell you, if you have a successful department, a successful company, and you're working on helping your people become successful, the prime beneficiary of that will be you. You don't have to worry about yourself. Like Chad, you don't have to worry about making that at Peterman. You don't have to think it's my best interest. I'm going to help people develop here, right? And then the rewards come to you, right? And same as if I was your plumbing manager. Again, I know your plumbing manager. I don't know him. I just use him or her as an example, right? But just say, look, I'm going to have a great plumbing department, right? I'm going to be a great team member on the Peterman team. I'm not going to worry about if I get mine or not. I'm going to worry about if it's fun, or if I have to have hard conversations. I don't want to. I'm just going to do it exactly what I can to be a great leader and develop leaders. You will be the primary beneficiary of that department. Just relax. Just do those things, right? It'll come to you, right? So that's kind of what I'd say. Just be a student of leadership. It's a fascinating subject. It ain't hard. We're not talking about, having a medical degree here. Just read a few books, listen to your podcast, go back, find mine, listen to them, listen to a few podcasts, and you'll be amazed. Just amazed.
I could not have said it better myself. Yeah. One of our 5 core values is lead ourselves, and it's number one, and it's number one for a reason, because I think it's the most important.
It's difficult too, by the way.
Oh yeah, you can listen to all the things you want, read all the books you want, but at the end of the day, you've got to put some action behind what you read in that book. And that becomes the difficult part, is holding yourself accountable as it relates to growth and handling, those tough conversations and different things like that. Putting your first team first when it's natural to want to put that second team before them. All of those things, I think, are critical in how we develop ourselves. It can be intimidating to think, how am I going to take this team and develop them into leaders? When I think the most important question is, how am I developing to one day develop them into leaders? And I think what I have seen is, and I'm a very introverted person by nature. And so growing people and having tough conversations and doing all of those things don't come very natural. And so what I tried to do was find outlets to where I could influence and where I could work on those things, but I could start to begin to create that culture of growth and let people know, hey, this is what I'm doing, or sending people podcasts, or, hey, you ought to check this out. It's really interesting. And there's just so many ways that you can affect others. And like you said, it is about, call it 30 minutes a day. If you did 30 minutes a day, you would be so far ahead of your peers by the end of the year, it wouldn't even be funny.
Yeah, and you'll find that how much more enjoyable is it to listen to a John Maxwell or a Chad Peterman than listen to some Yahoo talk show or NPR or whatever you're listening to in your car. Just or listen to Led Zeppelin again for the 10,000th time. Just just listen to some new content here, or your church, or whatever it is, right? Let's grow.
Yeah.
And then you feel inspired when you walk out of your car versus, angry at whatever the financial markets or whatever.
Yeah. Stuff you can't control.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whereas, Maxwell is going to give you a lot of things you can control. Now, whether you want to go out there and control them, that's the true test of leadership, is do you really want to work on these things? It is, you said, fulfilling and energized. And I think the biggest thing is, what I tell people is I love coming to work. It's an enjoyable experience because of not what we're doing, but how we're doing it. And I think that you and your example of how Nexstar has grown and evolved is a true testament to it's not what you do, it's how you do it, and where you place the emphasis on those principles and values that you run a place by, for sure. So thank you for thank you for setting the example, and continuing to live that out and help us all achieve what is very simple and very small. It's just a little bit of improvement each and every day will lead to very big results. So again, Jack, I can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure. I've got, as usual, I've got my page of notes here that I'm hopeful to put some action behind here later this afternoon and into the coming week. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it, Chad, and congratulations with you and your team have accomplished it. Well done, my friend. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All
well,
right.
Listeners, there you have it. Jack Tester on the Can't Stop the Growth podcast. Until next time, we'll see you.